open the page.
I don't want to hear you say that.
Put that umbrella around one and take it off you.
Warum?
John Bayley's on his second day at Grange Middle School in Harrow, working with Deputy Head Barbara Lee. Barbara's performance managing Kristin Patterson from Canada, who's in her second year at the school.
What's your last one? Okay.
One of Kristin's targets is to set a brisk pace to lessons, with pupils actively engaged.
What did we talk about last lesson? What did we learn last lesson? What did we talk about?
It's a Year 5 science lesson on evaporation.
What goes? Can we use a bit more scientific?
Evaporates.
What evaporates?
The water, the liquid.
Good, the liquid. So last lesson, what we did was we talked about sort of what we're going to do to set up for our investigation today. So if I could turn your heads to the backboard there. Okay, these are our learning objectives for today. Okay, the first one is to set up a fair test. The second one is to make careful measurements. What does that mean, making careful measurements? Nazat?
Making sure you don't do any mistakes, otherwise you won't be able to know what the right result is.
Fantastic, and I love that you used one of our key vocabulary.
I thought that there was a prompt start. Children engaged straight away. She was very, very positive within the class. It was very, very skillfully done.
Kira, what do you think a prediction is?
A prediction is like if you're doing a test and like you don't know the answer to something, then you just have a guess.
Okay, it's something a little bit more than a guess, though. It's something a little bit more. We use something to help us make a prediction, Danya.
I thought it had pace. There was quite a high level of engagement. You know, the class were with her most of the time.
Yeah.
She's got with-itness.
What is a prediction? What's a prediction?
Prediction is something that, well, say you would change something, but then you would say why you would change it. Like, what things would you use if you wanted to, like, change the type of liquid?
Not quite, but good try. Last one, Rashni.
There's a lot of good language being used. So that's pretty good. She's getting vocabulary from the children. Personally, I wouldn't have said not quite good try.
Yeah.
I'd have said what else could we know about this, because I don't want that child to crumple up.
Yeah.
But
she
she knows
knows
the children.
yeah.
That child wasn't going to crumble.
We said the temperature. We said the size of lid. We said the amount of liquid. I think we actually got them all. And we said the light. What's going to go down here?
The planning grid was nice and clear.
I thought the use of the whiteboard was excellent because it was up there, wasn't it?
She's
an
IT supremo, isn't she? The way things fold and unfold and all that. Yeah, that was a real strength.
So, what you're going to do, Matilita, is I want you...
The school's been working hard to improve its use of differentiation, another of Kristin's targets. She's divided the class into mixed ability groups, hoping pupils will help each other.
Okay, another place. So we've got somewhere hot.
Yeah. What about me?
It's different.
The children seemed to get on with it quite independently. They managed to decide who was doing what, and and carry out the fetching and carrying and pouring amounts of water.
Okay, is there a leader in this group? No. Who makes the decision?
We all do.
You all do. Okay.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So you have to decide how much water you put in one cup.
Have you heard what Neil's just said? Are you happy with that?
There were some very strong characters, I thought, within the class who tended to dominate, and by contrast there were those children who seemed to sit back and let it happen.
You know, when you plant seeds in soil, it will grow from the sun and from water. So I think it's true.
Right.
Some pupils are filling in the worksheet, but many are unsure how to work in a group.
It's filled up at 50.
Oh, we have to fill the container first. Hello? Fill the container.
We've got about 5 minutes left, 5p. 5 minutes.
I thought the children got on with the activity well, but they didn't necessarily function as a group on every table. Although they talked, I wasn't sure that they always listened to what the other person was saying. And given the nature of the class, I thought that that was a skill that could be developed with this particular class. So I didn't see any major behavioural issues. I thought that it was possibly a shame.
We will change temperature.
I can see there's one jump to where you could say, OK, let's look at what a self-actuating classroom would look like.
Yeah.
For example, on that table there's a set of questions that she's given out to assist them with the experiment. They could be much bigger. Their instructions could include things like one person read out the questions to all the other people on the table. When you are stuck, read it out loud. When you are stuck, ask a person next to you. Some of that would be instructions about thinking skills.
Yeah.
And some of it would be instructions about how you behave in a group. So is there a group leader, a group timekeeper, a reader, a keeper on tasker?
But Barbara needs a strategy for passing these ideas on to Kristen.
Think about that. Think about it.
Right at the centre of it is this idea of differentiation. Mm-hmm. And with differentiation, we're talking about more activities in which students structure their own work, more activities in which students assist each other. And we've talked about a number of ways in which you might make that happen. In feedback, you're trying to be a change agent. You're trying to assist someone else in making a change. What's your philosophy?
We want to empower the teachers, and we believe that there are skills that teachers have that they don't necessarily know that they have. And so our role is to facilitate that learning, as opposed to, right, this is what you're going to do.
Barbara's challenge is to raise doubts about the group work in a way Kristen will accept and act upon.
Oh, she did that.
John's observing.
Generally, I feel good about meeting the targets that were actually set for me.
I would agree with you. I thought there was definitely a brisk pace. I thought the children were certainly actively engaged. They seemed to really enjoy what they were doing. There were lots of high points within the lesson, and in any observation, as you, I'm sure, know, there are obviously going to be the bits that I think were good and how we can move on, because it's about development. And I spent time looking at, right, what would be the next steps. And for that reason, I've put this thing together, because
on John's advice, Barbara's brought in a written framework to help Kristen improve.
And I'm going to ask you to place yourself on that line.
Okay.
It's a scale of 1 to 10 for Kristen to judge how well she's doing in her teaching.
I think I'm probably about, I would say probably about a 6.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or maybe, no, I'm going to cross it out and say a 7.
A 7?
Yeah.
I'm glad you did that. I was going to say.
I think my problem is that I always undervalue that. I think when you have a tendency to self-mark yourself or like evaluate yourself, you think, lower.
On the side of caution.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Now, could we maybe identify something like that?
Yeah.
Barbara moves on to giving pupils clearer roles when working in groups.
What role did you plan in your head, did you think that the more able child would have within
more
the group?
of a leadership role.
And do you think that worked?
Yeah, I do actually, but I think it happened subtly. I don't think it was. I don't think that any of the children at the tables that didn't necessarily have a teacher there all the time. I don't think there was one child that kind of took over. you know, I think most children kind of work together, and when, you know, some organization needed to be done, I think that the child that was kind of more of the leader at the table just took that natural role.
Do you think there's any mileage in altering that leadership role?
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think that, you know, because it is kind of still, you know, the beginning, sort of, you know, it's still the autumn term, even though it's the beginning of second half. I think that the kids are starting to do group work now, and I think they kind of need to see that example given first.
Okay. How about your role within the class? How did you feel within the class, you know, during the session?
Good.
Yeah.
I wish I could have gotten around to more tables, but there were quite a few adults in the room that were, you know, seeing to all the tables at one point or another.
Okay.
So I tried to get to most of them. I wish I could have gotten to all of them, but I did try and get around to as many as I could.
Yeah. Just as you've raised that point in terms of trying to have an overview of what's going on in the class, do you think that maybe you could somehow maybe use the way you've organised your groups to enable you to do that without trying to get round to everybody?
Yes, I'm sure that there is.
I mean, can you see any connections?
Then
Do you
it's
think that could be a
differentiated.
benefit to you or the children?
I definitely think so, yeah. And I'd never really thought about it as much until we did my performance management.
Yeah.
You know,
The meeting lasted an hour and a half, much longer than planned. And John brings up the time issue.
Kristen found this framework useful. Took a long time, didn't it?
It did.
My kind of my feeling about that is it would have been quicker if the framework had been known about and shared
Yes.
beforehand.
I agree. I could have possibly left that with her a little while before. I could have given it to her over lunch, perhaps.
It was quite interesting that here we are, performance management feedback. Teacher comes into the room and you say, where do you want to be? Where are you now? What have we learned from this lesson? And she says, well, I hadn't really thought about that, and I'm a bit too negative. I wonder how typical that is and how important it is to give people a framework beforehand. This is what's going to happen. These are the ideas you need to prepare.
I think in terms of the time it takes, it would shorten the amount of time that's spent on it, partly because they've got to get up to speed and they've got to do the thinking while you're there. It'll probably be more accurate in terms of reflecting how they feel, because then they, can take some time over, for example, putting themselves on this line and maybe changing their mind before they see you.
And what has this made you think about the school target of differentiation?
There's possibly some directing to do, but it doesn't have to be done necessarily on an individual basis. That we can do some school collaboration. We could use maybe some staff meeting time in putting things together, but it certainly won't be coming from top down. It'll be something that we will get together on.